All right, so we are here with Ned Morris, the winemaker of Basel Cellars in Walla Walla, Washington. And Ned, can you just introduce us a little bit about who you are and your background and maybe what got you into wine?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ned Morris. I'm the winemaker at Basel Cellars, winemaker general manager. And as Dwayne says, I love wine. So I fell in love with wine in Australia. I went to Australia to play semi-pro water polo and met a girl and ended up staying and was waiting tables and bartending and was working at a pretty fine dining restaurant in Australia. Needed to have a lot of wine knowledge, and at that point I was just a beer drinking fool. You know, I was in my early 20s and loving life and enjoying myself. And I said, well, yeah, you know, I'd like to learn more about wine so that I can do better at my job. And so I started tasting wines, and I had some life-changing experiences with some of the wines that I tried. I just fell in love with wine, and it became a passion and obsession for both my wife and I. And we started collecting wines and tasting wines and doing all that. And then I started training in Australia at Penfolds McGill Estate, which is probably one of the greater wine education institutions in the world for sure. Certainly up there in the top 5. And was training there as a somm to be a sommelier, and would probably still be doing that, running restaurants and working as a somm. Except in the late 90s, we came back to the States for a family illness, family emergency, and stayed. And at that point in time, my wife and I, Susie, were talking about starting a family, but we decided I really definitely wanted to stay involved with wine. So restaurant life was kind of going to be a tough proposition. And I'm not saying it can't be done to run a restaurant or work in restaurant life and have a family, because I got a lot of friends that do it. It's just difficult life for a family.
Sure.
So we looked at other alternatives, and I had a lot of my family's old school Walla Walla. Wine scene was just getting started in the 90s, mid-late 90s. Things were just taking off. We're just getting started on their snowball that it's turned into. But I went and talked with a lot of those guys and said, hey, I want to be involved with wine. I just don't know how to do it. They all said, Nettie, we'll give you a job right now if you want to work in the cellar as a cellar hand. But it's really tough to make that jump from cellar hand to a winemaker or enologist.
Right.
You're far better off if you can afford it to get a degree. So at that point, my wife put me through graduate school. I got a master's degree at Oregon State in food chemistry with minor concentrations in microbiology and biochemistry and a heavy focus on fermentation science. So we did a lot of beer, wine, yogurt, cheese, anything fermented that you can think of. We got to play with it and just continued to build my passion and obsession for wine. And then within days of my thesis defense, I was working at the Beha in Walla Walla. Learned everything I know from a guy named John Abbott, who's the winemaker and owner of a Beha in Walla Walla. Taught me everything I know. Great having that book smart knowledge from Oregon State. Great having that chemistry background, that biochemistry, microbiology, understanding of the hygiene and why we need to be so careful in the winery. But really the hands-on part of winemaking I learned from John. And now I'm at Basel Cellars, where all I really want to do is show off this fruit and make the best wine I can make on any given vintage from what the fruit has to give me. So I'm pretty soft with oak, very light with tannin. My wines have been called feminine, which is great for me. I think that the softer, less tannic, less oaky wines are more balanced. I think they're more proportionate for making food-friendly wines. I think that acidity is a key component to making wines that pair with food. And for me, that's what it's all about. I came at winemaking from a food perspective, and for me, it's about that marriage of wine and food. Very, very few winemakers are wanting to have their wines not be the focus.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I don't think wine should be the focus. I think it's important, but I don't think it should be the star of the show. It should be a leading cast member for sure, but it should share that lead role with song and dance, laughter, music, friends and family, and an experience around food. And it's the entire experience that we're talking about here, not just this one component of it, the wine. We're talking about the wine, the food, the music, the people you're sharing it with, that whole thing. And so for me, it's not about this one very focused thing, even though I'm focused on making that great. for me, it's about that whole experience. And awesome if the wine is the glue that holds that whole experience together. You remember an experience because of a wine, or you see a wine and you remember an experience because of it. That's awesome. But that's what it's all about. It's not about the wine. It's about what goes around that wine that you've shared with your friends and family that makes it so special. That's what I want to be. That's where I want to go. And it's making that wine. So with that philosophy, I'm making wines that are balanced and proportionate so that they can play all over the menu. I want a wine that you could have with a carbonara and turn around and have with a lamb shank or a steak or a ragu or a lasagna or whatever. I want it to play all around. And that's my goal.
That's very cool. Tell us a little bit about what the transition has been like into Basel for you.
It's been really good. I inherited some great wines. Previous winemakers have used the same fruit that we've been using for years. It's a state vineyard, so that carries that backbone of consistency through those wines, and that terroir that we've got. You can't take that out of the grapes, and I get to inherit that. And all I want to do with those wines is keep that similar style, which is about the food, it's about the wines, it's about this versatility between both of them. I want to take that and just refine it, just smooth it out. I want to take the wines that were there in the past and continue to build that style, but make it a little more clean and a little more clear and a little more refined.
Where do you see your winemaking going over the next, 3 to 5 years with Basel? Stylistically, or maybe just maybe personally?
Sure. Stylistically, I'm gonna stay along that same path. I want to make these wines that are proportionate and balanced. That's the whole name of the game. I want the wines to have a sense of place. So I want to tie it into the vineyard and the fruit because we are an estate winery. I want to show off that fruit. So oak and tannin should just be there as a support mechanism to show off that fruit. So that's where I'm going stylistically down the road. Is not going to be a lot of big changes. Vintage to vintage, we might go like this, but the goal is still balanced and proportionate and food friendly and fun for all. So that's where I'm going stylistically. Personally, I'm really loving Malbecs right now in Eastern Washington. I think I'm making a pretty neat one. A lot of spice, a lot of flavor, a lot of body. So I've been really enjoying playing with that grape. I know Cab is king, so personally I enjoy Bordeaux wines. I want to make the wines that I like to drink, so I'm making a lot of Bordeaux varietals and Bordeaux styles, Bordeaux style blends. But for me, the future is a lot like today, only better. I want to take what we're doing today, and I just want to keep building on that foundation. But I don't want to change things too drastically.
That's cool. Who would you say are some of your most influential winemakers?
Well, other than John, obviously my mentor, John Abbott, out of Bayonne. Some great wines come out of him. I really enjoy the Pepper Bridge wines. I think JF, Jean-Francois Pellet, if you guys don't know, Pepper Bridge wines and Amavi, I think his wines keep getting better and better and better the more he learns those vineyards. And since he's moved up from California and started in Washington over a decade ago, the wines have gotten continually better every year. Even with some really tough years to make wine in, he has gone out there and gone above a lot of his peers because he knows what he's doing. And he really has a foundation of science behind the winemaking. I love his wines. And then Pepper Bridge and the Beja, like I said, I'm a Bordeaux kind of guy. If I really wanted to focus on some Syrahs, there's some great known producers in Walla Walla. I'd say Gramercy, Savaya, a lot of some really waters, some really fun wines, really fun Syrahs. But
when you were out in Australia, did you have a chance to work with John Duval at all?
I met John when I was down there, and I worked with him only on a tasting side. I got no production experience when I was in Australia, so I didn't really learn a lot about winemaking. I learned at that point in my life, in my career, that was more palate honing and learning how to taste wine and smell wine and really pick apart all the very minute influences that a wine can give, both aroma and flavor and mouthfeel profile. So that was my focus there, and with John, that's all he knew me as a training.
Sure. Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to learn under somebody like that.
Right, yeah. Great experiences for sure.
Yeah, the guy's built quite the pedigree there.
Yeah.
So for you personally, professionally, where do you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years?
You know, I'd really like to say I think I'm going to be at Basel Cellars for a long, long time, and that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to see that happen. I think I think I'm at the point now in my career that this is where I want to start building a legacy, and I feel like Basel Cellars is the right fit to do that. It feels right. It just feels great. The owners are awesome, sweet, sweet people. The production team that I've got is incredible. The staff that run the rest of the facility, the tasting room and the estate house that we rent out, unbelievable group of people. We're a very small team. We all wear tons of hats, and we all work together to help each other out. You know, focusing on each other's strengths and weaknesses to hide all the weaknesses and capitalize on the strengths. It's just an awesome team, and I think we're going to really take it into the future, and I'm really looking forward and excited about what there is to come at Basel Cellars.
So for those viewing outside of the Washington area, how might they be able to get your wines if they want to try them?
Well, we are distributed pretty heavily. The easiest, obviously, to get the wines is to contact us. We can ship them to most states. I think 40 states in the nation we can ship to. So there's, you know, really that's the easiest and best way to get the stuff. Other than that, we're pretty heavily distributed in the Northwest. We've got great distribution networks here. We're in some other markets in the nation. We're on the East Coast, a little bit in Chicago, a little bit in Wisconsin and Minnesota, some down the South, you know, Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans. But really, the bulk of our distribution market is in the Northwest,
okay.
And that's where it's been going. So.
Cool. I appreciate your time. We look forward to following up, keep tracking with you guys over the next few years, and
yeah,
it's exciting to see what you guys are doing there.
Well, thanks, Dwayne. It's fun walking down this path together. It's what. For me, it's what leads to friendships and what leads to this flagship that we're trying to go and start is just being together and having this journey together.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Ned.